As you work through each Physics 103 experiment, you'll be asked to record data, do some analysis. You might have to make a sketch or a plot, and you'll have to answer some questions about the things you observe. All of this should be done in the lab data sheet. A copy of each lab data sheet is included at the end of each lab write-up. It's a PDF though, and so it's not easy to put your answers in. So instead of using your lab manual version of the lab data sheet, we've put MS Word copies of each lab data sheet on the lab computers. To get the Word copy of your lab data sheet, just go to the desktop of the lab computer and click on the folder that's labeled Lab Data Sheets, and then you can choose or pick out whichever one of the lab data sheets you're going to be using. So for example, let's choose here Lab Data Sheet 3. Of course, it's a Word file, so you can just type in your answers. However, sometimes you're asked to make a sketch or plot. To do this, you're going to need to use the graphics pad and the electronic pencil. So let's take a look at those and how that works. So here's a view of the pad, and there's a electronic pencil or pen that goes with it. Don't use an ordinary pencil on this. It'll just end up scratching the surface of the pad and it won't really work right. So make sure you find that pencil. To use the pad, click on the Review tab at the top of your Word file. There it is right here. You'll see this menu come up all the way on the right. There's a button for Start Inking. Just click on that, and now you see a new menu shows up. At this point, you can pick up the graphics pen. And to use a pen, you see that on the top here, it's highlighted. Pen is shown as active. And let me just pick, say, this pen right here. I'll select that. At this point, you can start drawing on your MS Word file. So in this particular case here, we've got Experiment 3 open. There's some questions here where you actually have to make some sketches. Down here is to make sketches of the scope display of your voice. Now, you haven't done this experiment yet, or you probably haven't. But let's just indicate how this would work. So I've selected a black pen here, fairly fine, and let me just sketch a line here or a curve. Here's an example. Not doing a great job, not doing too bad, and there I've drawn some kind of a sine wave on top of this. Now, a couple things you can do here. One is you can select this. If you go up to the top, you'll see there's also something that lets you select objects. So here, I just clicked on it. And now I can move this around, or I can stretch it. Actually, if I can grab it here, stretch it, make it larger, change the aspect ratio. You can also change the color if you'd like. You go up here to that palette. Here's red, here's blue, okay, etc. If you want to draw something else, you have to go back again. You see I'm on Select Object. You got to select the pen again, and we could continue drawing on this object, or making another curve, or adding a curve. You can draw over it if you want. There's also some other buttons. For example, there's a highlighter here. If there's something important that you want to use, want to highlight in the text, for example, or if you want to use that to color something that you're drawing, you have some choice about the thicknesses and the colors that you can use. Let me go back to Select Object. If I want to, of course, if that was a mistake, you could select that, and then if you right-click on it, it gives you some options. You could cut it or copy it. So if you go back to your keyboard and hit Delete, that will knock it out, for example. There's also up here an eraser, which is not great, but you see it just knocks the whole thing out too. And of course, if you want to, you can always hit this button up here right on the upper left, which is Undo if you made a mistake, and there are both of those objects now that are returned. So it's fairly straightforward to use the pad. It does take perhaps a little bit of getting used to. The screen is actually set up, or the pad is set up so that it's in pen mode right now, or it should be on your lab computer, which means that the upper left part of the screen maps to the upper left part of your pad, and the lower right part of the screen is mapped to the lower right part of your pad. It, like I say, it takes a little bit of getting used to, and you'll want to practice drawing things. If you use a keyboard or start typing again, the pen is disconnected, and if you want to use a pen again, you need to go back and select pen right here, and then you can draw again. So one of the things that you might find useful, let me go up here and again select pen, and I'm going to choose, let's say, this pen here, which is a little bit wider, and if I start to draw with this pen, I can try pressing very lightly, or I can try pressing much more firmly, and you can see that you can control the width. There's very light, there's strong, so that's pressure sensitive pen can be very useful for drawing things, or you might find it handy. The pad can also be run in another mode, a mouse mode, and some people find this to be more intuitive, but it's not pressure sensitive like in drawing mode. And if you have trouble with the pad, just let your TA know and maybe they'll go over operation with you. Of course, when you're all done, you'll also want to save your file. So to save a file, just as usual, go up to File button, hit Save, and then add a name to your file, or add your name to the file. So for example, and then just save, and the program will automatically save it in the My Documents folder. That's actually the only place you can access on lab computers. So make sure you put your name in there so you don't lose your file.